For this lecture, I would like to follow up on the activity that I asked you to do yesterday. Yesterday, I gave you this document-based question on the era of good feelings. The prompt says, historians have traditionally labeled the period after the War of 1812 the era of good feelings. Support, modify, or refute this label, considering the emergence of nationalism and sectionalism. Now, yesterday, I asked you to analyze and review these documents and then to group them and sort them in a way that would allow you to attack this prompt with an essay. We're not going to write the essay or anything like that, although I'm happy to maybe practice that with you if you'd like to do thesis statements or if you'd like to write and have me look at it. But today, I just want to kind of annotate and unpack these documents so you can review your work and your thinking so far. This era of good feelings from 1815 to 1825, it has the semblance of being a very good time, but of course, underneath the surface during these 10 years, there were emerging problems that would complicate America in future decades. This first document, Document 1, the part that I want to highlight here, this is John C. Calhoun in Congress. It's 1817, and what he's fearing is the greatest of calamities would be disunion. So he wants something that will bind the republic together. He's pleading here for unity. That's kind of his purpose. And the way that he sees that us building unity will be through a perfect system of roads and canals. These are what we would call internal improvements. In the aftermath of the War of 1812, Henry Clay put forward a very nationalist idea called the American system. And the three components of the American system are a national bank, and internal improvements, these roads and canals, and a protective tariff. This document is specifically talking about those internal improvements. I always say Henry Clay's American system is a bit like Alexander Hamilton's plan with the BFAT, if you remember that acronym. Henry Clay's American system was a bit like that, a bank, internal improvements, and a tariff. John C. Calhoun is supporting that part of Henry Clay's plan, saying we need the federal government to fund and build roads and canals to keep our country together and not allow us to break apart. This second document is a court case. This is one of the famous Marshall Court cases, McCulloch versus Maryland. And what this is saying is that the second bank of the United States was constitutional. So this is also supporting Henry Clay's nationalist American system. What's going on here with the second bank of the U.S.? Well, Alexander Hamilton, he put forward his first bank, the national bank, but it was only good for 20 years. It expired during the War of 1812, or right after, in 1816. I'm sorry, in 1811, right before. In 1816, Henry Clay pushed Congress to charter a second bank of the U.S., and this time the constitutionality of that second bank was challenged in the Supreme Court. Maryland had been taxing this new bank and essentially making it harder for this second bank to work. Famously, he says the powers of the general government, it has been said, are delegated to the states, who alone are truly sovereign. But it would be difficult to sustain this proposition. In other words, the Supreme Court is saying that Maryland is in the wrong and that Congress does have the power to incorporate a bank. They were saying, yes, the second bank was constitutional. This third document, it's Thomas Jefferson. It's a private letter. He says he's fearful. It was a fire bell in the night. He was awakened and filled with terror. He said this could be, whatever he's talking about here, the death knell of the Union. He says a geographic line coinciding with a marked principle. What's he talking about here? Well, this document is about something that took place in 1820 that's known as the Missouri Compromise. The Missouri Compromise draws a line officially separating the Louisiana Purchase at the 3630 parallel. And it said territories north of that 3630 line would eventually be free states, and territories south of that 3630 line would eventually be slave states. The Missouri Compromise also admitted Missouri into the Union as a slave state and Maine into the Union as a free state. And so this shows the importance of sectional balance in the United States Senate. Every state has equal representation in the Senate, 2 senators. So if sectional viewpoints are going to be equally weighted, you would need an equal number of northern and southern states. The Missouri Compromise is highlighting those issues. And Jefferson, even though a slave owner and a slave advocate, is nervous about this because he says this line could perpetually divide us and could be the death knell of the Union. This is certainly foreshadowing a civil war. Document 4, this document is dealing with foreign policy. The president at the time was Monroe. John Quincy Adams was his Secretary of State. John Quincy Adams will go on to be president later, but in 1823, he is Secretary of State. And in fact, John Quincy Adams is a very good Secretary of State. He may be one of the best Secretary of States, at least resume-wise, in all of American history. In this document, it's talking about what will come to be known as the Monroe Doctrine. It takes Monroe's name, even though it was Quincy Adams who was putting this together. And in the document, America is taking a stand against the incursions of the Holy Alliance into Latin America and really the Western Hemisphere. This document is saying that America is going to stand up to the Holy Alliance without British backing. We don't want to be in a subordinate position to Great Britain. So we're doing this on our own, and we're telling the rest of the world to keep out, to not intervene in the Western Hemisphere. I put in this little note that this is admirable but laughable in 1823. It's a good statement of position, but America wasn't going to be able to back that up. It's very nationalist in its assertion, but we were going to struggle to back that up for many years. And finally, these maps, these are electoral maps from 1820 to 1924. And these maps, I just put a note here, they show changes in the electoral procedures. Notice how in the 1820 map, there's no popular vote. Some states held a popular vote, some states didn't. State legislatures actually just designated their electoral votes. And so the popular vote, this idea of America being a democracy, really isn't a thing. We don't keep that. Also notice that Monroe also almost won unanimously. I think I've told you before, George Washington, the only president to be unanimously elected by the Electoral College. James Monroe technically should have, but the Electoral College threw one vote off to Adams just as a token of respect to Washington. This is also a reason why we might call it the era of good feelings. There's a semblance of national unity. However, fast forward 4 years, things have changed. Now, most states are holding a popular vote and we're counting them. States are becoming more democratic. In the coming years, property qualifications for voting will disappear, meaning more people can vote. And when I say people, I mean white males. What we're losing is that landowning qualification. So America's not becoming more democratic in terms of people of color or women, but this is a growing age of democracy where at least the common white man will now have a vote. States are holding popular votes. We're seeing that total. The other thing that this map shows is regional or sectional divide. You definitely kind of have a Western candidate, a Southern candidate, and a kind of a northern candidate. Quincy Adams in the north, Henry Clay kind of in the west, and Andrew Jackson in the south. William Crawford also pulled a few votes. But each kind of section of the country nominated a favorite son. Here's the other thing that you'll see in this. Andrew Jackson wins the popular vote. He wins the electoral vote, but he's not going to win the election. Neither of those numbers constitute a majority, but merely a plurality. According to our Constitution, though, in order to win the election, you need a majority. So this election went to the House of Representatives, the only time that it's been done in this sense. And the House of Representatives, led by Speaker Henry Clay, chose John Quincy Adams to be the 6th president of the United States. Andrew Jackson says that this is a corrupt bargain, that the special interests of Washington have thwarted the will of the people. John Quincy Adams became president. He then immediately picks Henry Clay to be his Secretary of State, and Andrew Jackson is furious and will go on the campaign for his own election in 1828. So there's a lot going on in these two electoral maps. Okay, I've unpacked the 5 documents, giving you some kind of lecture notes and some background. Hopefully this helps you review how you sorted and planned your essay. We will write a DBQ again in our next unit, 4.2, and this idea of unpacking documents, paying attention to source material, point of view, historical context, what's in the document versus outside information is going to be a crucial skill when we do a DBQ in the next unit. I hope this helped, and I hope you learned something by going over these documents. Thanks for listening.